It all started on a Tuesday that was so peaceful, it almost felt suspicious, like the universe was setting up a joke at my expense. I was just sitting out on my porch, coffee in hand, finally soaking up the rare bit of quiet that comes around here every once in a blue moon. You know that feeling, right? For just a moment, it felt like maybe the chaos had taken a day off. Turns out, chaos doesn't take sick days. One loud, ugly thud later, that illusion shattered. My heart jumped straight into my throat as I looked up and heard this metallic screech. Then the sound of something heavy scraping against steel. I set my mug down so fast coffee sloshed over the rim, raced to the front yard, and there it was, my brand new, custom-built gate. A dent the size of a watermelon right in the middle of it, like it was mocking me for even trying to have nice things. And you can probably guess who was standing there, acting like nothing happened. Karen's teenage son, the neighborhood's crown prince of getting away with stuff. His mom, Karen, being the self-declared HOA president and unofficial warden of everyone's happiness, already had a reputation for keeping score and making rules up as she went. I tried to keep my cool as I asked him, "Hey, did you hit my gate?" He just shrugged, looked right past me, and mumbled, "It was too close to the driveway. Not my fault. You know what I mean?" I just stood there, half wanting to laugh, half wanting to scream. Here was this kid, claiming my gate, the one I'd measured 3 times before having it professionally installed, was somehow in his way. Let me back up a sec. This is the kind of neighborhood where Karen's the type to send out warning letters if your grass gets a quarter-inch too high, and she's been policing mailbox flags and trash can placement since before I even moved in. So, when I marched over to her house and knocked, I had a pretty good idea of what kind of reception I'd get. She opened the door with this tight, practiced smile. One of those bless your heart smiles you know isn't about to bless anything. I laid out the facts, the photos, the measurements, the fresh dent that matched exactly where her son's van had been parked halfway onto the curb. She listened just long enough to interrupt, waved it off, and said, "Kids will be kids. Maybe you shouldn't have put your gate so close to the driveway." No apology, no offer to make it right, just a masterclass in deflection. That's when something snapped inside me. Not anger, but that cold, steely resolve that says, "Nope, not this time." I called my insurance company, hands still shaking, told them everything, and sent in every bit of proof I could gather. I honestly expected a slow, bureaucratic fight or for them to find some loophole and leave me hanging. But here's where things took a turn. The adjuster wasn't just sympathetic. They took one look at my photos, the neighbor's witness statement, and all the paperwork, and said, "You're covered, and we'll be contacting the other party's insurance." It was like a weight lifted off my chest. Somebody was actually listening. Somebody who didn't answer to Karen or her version of reality. Of course, the news spread faster than I could finish my second cup of coffee the next morning. Karen caught wind that her side wasn't going to just bulldoze over mine this time. I could almost feel her scheming from across the street, plotting out the next HOA meeting, planning how she'd spin the story and make me the villain for daring to protect my own property. Meanwhile, my insurance adjuster told me, point blank, their insurance is liable. There's no wiggle room here. It's all documented. For the first time in years, someone actually stood up to Karen and her ironclad grip on this place. So I started documenting everything, every petty rule she tried to enforce, every little dig she made about how real neighbors know how to place a gate, every passive-aggressive email. It felt less like dealing with a neighbor and more like preparing for trial. You'd think this would die down once it was clear the insurance companies had my back. You'd be wrong. That was just round one. The real battle came at the next HOA meeting. Those meetings are usually a yawn fest. Half the people barely paying attention, just waiting for someone to bring up cookies or yard sales. But this time, you could feel the tension in the air. Karen was up there at the front, surrounded by her loyalists, reading out violations like she was the judge at a county fair. Then, right on cue, she brings up a minor property incident involving a young resident. She said it all so carefully, as if maybe she could sweep it under the rug with the right phrasing. I raised my hand. My voice didn't shake, because by then, I had nothing left to lose. I laid out the facts in front of everyone. The photos, the measurements, the insurance company's letter. I could see some people in the crowd actually lean in for the first time ever. And when I said, "The insurance has already confirmed," it was someone else's negligence, not mine. You could feel the room shift. Karen's smile froze. For once, she didn't have a comeback. The silence was golden. Here's the twist. Remember I said the whole meeting felt different? That's because someone else stood up too. Old Mr. Lawson, who'd lived in the neighborhood since before the HOA was even a thing. He cleared his throat and said, "About time someone stood up to this nonsense. Karen, I got one of those letters about my mailbox last year. Said it was an inch too low. Guess what? Mail's still getting delivered." Suddenly, there were murmurs all around the room. People started trading stories, quietly at first, then louder. You could almost see the fear melting off their faces. Karen tried to regain control, rattling off some arcane bylaw, but no one was listening. By the end, the board ruled in my favor. The gate repairs would be paid in full, no fines, no warnings. Karen couldn't stop it, and in front of everyone, her aura of untouchability cracked. And man, was it satisfying to see. But if you think she took that quietly, you don't know Karen. The next day, my inbox blew up. Emails filled with veiled threats about community harmony and how maybe I'd like to reconsider future architectural requests. Some of them were so over the top, you'd think I'd burned down her garden, not just fixed a dented gate. But this time, I didn't bite. I answered every single message with facts, paperwork, the insurance statement. No emotion, just the truth. And with every email I sent back, you could almost feel the balance of power shifting. A week later, the repairs were done. My gate looked brand new, not a scratch or dent in sight. But what really changed wasn't the metal and paint. It was the mood on my street. Neighbors who'd never said more than hello started stopping by. Some told me about the time Karen fined them for wind chimes, or how they'd been too afraid to challenge her when she ordered their hedges trimmed. For the first time, I realized just how much everyone had been tiptoeing around her, and how one little act of standing up could change the whole culture of a place. You ever notice how sometimes it takes one person refusing to roll over to set off a domino effect? That's what happened here. People got brave. People started pushing back, not with pitchforks, but with reason and, most importantly, with evidence. And even though Karen tried to stir up more drama, her grip was broken. She couldn't threaten or intimidate the same way when everyone else knew the truth. It's wild how a dented gate could kick off a chain reaction, but that's exactly what happened. Looking back, I almost wish Karen had just taught her son to own up to his mistakes. I mean, we all mess up. Maybe if she'd said sorry, paid for the repairs, none of this would have spiraled into a full-blown neighborhood reckoning. But then again, maybe this was overdue. Maybe people needed to see what happens when you stand your ground. Not with shouting, not with threats, but with quiet persistence and a stack of undeniable facts. Now, the gate stands strong. The sun hits it just right in the morning, and sometimes I catch myself grinning at the memory of Karen's face when the verdict came down. But the real satisfaction isn't in the repaired metal. It's in knowing the neighborhood changed, just a little, because someone finally drew a line and refused to be bullied. I still see Karen pacing by sometimes, shooting daggers with her eyes. The drama's probably not over. Let's be real, people like that don't change overnight. But everyone else knows now. You don't have to stay quiet just because it's easier. So, let me ask you, what would you do if someone dented your gate and tried to blame you for it? Would you back down or fight back? Drop your story below, because I know this isn't just my battle. Let's see how many people out there are done putting up with Karens and their crazy rules. And if you want more wild neighborhood stories, you know what to do. Hit that like, and tell me, where do you draw the line? Because, trust me, sometimes all it takes is one dent to set things right.